Unai Emery's Aston Villa have smashed all sorts of records at club level and they have defied expectations across the league. Currently, as we record, they're now 4 points ahead of Manchester City. Essentially the halfway point in the league. Feels unbelievable, as well as a very dominant and convincing Europa Conference League group stage performance as well. Typical Unai Emery. The European Cup run was always on the cards, always kind of in the expectations, I think, wasn't it? But to be this strong, this early in the Premier League definitely defies all expectations. And Aston Villa are one of the core clubs right now that have really put the cat amongst the pigeons and are making this the most exciting title race and the most exciting top 4 race that I can remember over the last 5 or 6 years. But it is not job done yet by any stretch of the imagination. Aston Villa have got a huge January transfer window, and Unai Emery and Monchi have been playing this lovely money ball kind of system with the transfer window. I'm not too sure how they're going to attack this January. Do they continue to push the envelope for the best talent they could possibly get, like I've been really excited to see them do thus far? Or is it football economics for the January transfer window, money ball, just try and get someone in that works and see the season out as best as you possibly can before going properly after key transfer targets in the summer? In the video today, we'll be looking at the Aston Villa squad and the 3 transfers that they have to make in the summer if they're going to maintain this top 4 push and maybe even do something even more spectacular. At point of recording, 1 point off of top of the league. And earlier this week, we dropped a video talking about how Aston Villa could genuinely get themselves into title contention at any point in the video. But today, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel. We're pushing for 10,000 subscribers, and we cannot do that without your support, guys. So yeah, if you enjoy the content here, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button for more, and jump into the comment section and let me know if you were to bring in one player for Aston Villa in January, who would it be? What position is the biggest priority? And yeah, let's just get stuck straight into it. Now, the Aston Villa squad at the moment sits kind of like so. There's maybe, like Buendia's been out for the season, injured, not really too sure when he returns. Mings, I think his entire season is over. So when we take them out of the picture, it's actually kind of a thin squad out with defence. I love the versatility, the whole chess ball thing that Emery's had, where it's all about controlling the middle of the pitch. And they've done a fantastic job in getting a fantastic tune out of really all 7 of these players across a multitude of different positions, across a multitude of formations, home, away, at home, in Europe, you name it, Villa have been doing it. But it is quite thin, and a lot of these guys are of a kind of similar, mold, which has been great for the versatility angle, but it might start to, we need to keep those wheels greased in attack. Some of these guys might get heavy legs towards the end of the season. Then there's suspensions, there's injuries, there's all that kind of stuff as well. So I do feel there's room in here for maybe a little bit more support in midfield. But the glaring obvious area is in attack. Ollie Watkins, for me, is the most important player in this team right now, for the simple fact, if you take him out, a lot of the goals disappear. Maybe you could get something out of Diaby or Bailey in that position, in that role, granted, right? But John Duran isn't the step-in replacement for Watkins that you need to continue to push into this top 4, top 3, top 2, top 1 positions. And as much as the defence looks very well built and balanced here, I think the ceiling on the quality of this defence could still be improved ever so slightly, but it's definitely the furthest down the pecking order here. Now, if we were to look at strikers, the one that's going to be linked probably the most vehemently in the press, because he is available in the January transfer window, is Timo Werner. Now, this might seem like a bit of a lazy one because he played for Chelsea, and yeah, he's played in the Premier League and he's a striker and all the rest of it. But I've watched a lot of Timo Werner. I'm a huge fan of him. And this system that Aston Villa have been playing is a carbon copy of peak Leipzig. Timo Werner in the Bundesliga scored all those goals, made his reputation for himself in the Bundesliga by playing in this Ollie Watkins position ahead of this kind of Leipzig build midfield and defence that Aston Villa clearly do have an implementation. Floating out into wide pockets for counter-attack transitions to be able to run on with great pace, to either square the ball for a tap-in or try and get a finish himself. Now, as you've seen at Chelsea, he wasn't that prolific, and it was mainly because he was getting played on the shoulder as a centre-forward or as an out-and-out wing wide forward kind of player. I said at the time, Chelsea are not going to get a good tune out of him. I know he won the Champions League. He did kind of okay in little spells and bursts, but I'm telling you, if Aston Villa signed him, you would see Leipzig Timo Werner. Now, I do feel that this is actually kind of an unlikely transfer, even though he's available, because Werner's problem at the moment in Leipzig is he can't get a game ahead of Openda. So is it going to come to Villa to not get a game most of the time ahead of Watkins? Probably not. He's also very heavily linked to West Ham, and that probably fits a bit better. I think he's a much better upgrade on like Mikel Antonio, because I don't think he really upgrades you on Watkins. He just gives you elite backup, like properly elite. Can you get him bought in and sold on the deal? Maybe. I doubt it. And just to highlight, like Timo Werner, fit and firing in a system like this is a credible goal scoring threat and assist maker. And I really do feel that it cannot be understated the value he would add into this Aston Villa squad. A big player, played in Champions League for Leipzig and obviously Chelsea and Premier League, all that stuff, German international. You really know what you're getting. It feels similar to like a Diaby, a Zaniolo type transfer. I could see it happening, but it's just that whole first team aspect of it that really does take the wind out of the sails of that transfer for me. But I think continuing in this whole kind of Moneyball fashion thing that we've seen from Monchi and Unai Emery, there is a real easy target out there in the European market this January especially, and that is Paris Saint-Germain. They have been spending money galore. They know they're going to lose Mbappe. They've lost Messi and Neymar, and one of the collateral damage elements of this is a wonder kid by the name of Hugo Ekitike. Now, Hugo Ekitike has fell way down the pecking order at PSG behind Kolo Muani, Goncalo Ramos, all these types of guys. PSG need to get players off their books. They need to have incoming transfer fees. And this guy at 21 years of age is much more of a profile that I think Aston Villa fans could get behind, would fit the system of Unai Emery, and also because of his age and his current career situation, he's going to be happy getting into the Premier League and an important team, going to try and achieve important things, and he will get minutes, he will get time. You know, I'm talking about Werner not wanting to be second fiddle. You will get minutes, you will play in this team, undoubtedly, but it's clear that Watkins is the main man for the time being. But Ekitike, I think, would be a great foil, a great kind of step-in replacement, potentially. And with PSG being on their knees at the moment, this could be a decent deal. It might be a loan-to-buy situation, or you could maybe just get them on a real cut price because they are desperate. Now, he's not featured at all this season. He's not been, you know, he has been fit. He's not been injured or anything like that. But it was the form he showed before turning up in Paris that really caught the headlines. He was the hottest striker in Europe. PSG paid sick amounts of money for him after him bagging all these goals. Reims or something like that, a kind of lower end French team. And yeah, it's just not really worked out for him in Paris. But guy clearly has a lot of prospect, a lot of potential, and I think he would really fit into this squad really well. Now again, if we're looking at the Aston Villa squad and we're thinking about the great ammunition, the great routes to goal that we get from the likes of Diaby and Bailey, I know Zaniolo does that kind of job as well with less pace, but it's the same kind of direct forward thinking effect. Could you have someone else that come into this team that could actually offer you a little bit of attacking midfield versatility? If you don't have Tielemans available, maybe you need him a bit deeper. Or equally, if you were kind of out on the pace players, you've got someone else that can kind of help cover them as well. And again, as I watch across European football and I'm thinking about this type of profile for Aston Villa, if it wasn't to be Werner, if Ekitike is still to be too expensive, then I would love to see Aston Villa go out and add someone like Calvin Stengs into their ranks. This guy really showed up on the radar as a wonder kid at AZ, moved to France, it didn't really work out, he went back to Feyenoord, who had a pretty decent Champions League campaign, you don't need to ask me about that, but he did it in attacking midfield, formerly a winger, and can kind of play up front as well. And I think the versatility he offers in these kind of areas here would be more akin to maybe what Gerrard are trying to do with bringing Coutinho in. And, you know, like in these types of teams that are very formational, very rigid or whatever, you need guys like Diaby, like Bailey, like Tielemans has been, Zaniolo can be at times, and Stengs definitely would be, that are mavericks that have like proper talent in their boots, can create something out of nothing. We've seen Mohamed Kudus been a wild success at West Ham, and I feel somebody like Stengs could really do the same kind of job for Aston Villa. It's not just about goals and assists. He beats guys on the dribble. He's pretty good at set pieces as well. And like I say, he's very, very versatile. And a guy that on these ratings out of 100 is really showing up across a lot of radars across European football. Similar to Diaby, similar to, you know, Bailey, Zaniolo, some of these types of signings. It would be a massive statement. It would really keep the quality of the squad extremely high and keep Villa's optimistic, you know, goals and objectives really still on the horizon. So I think the forward category is the one that needs the most attention, the most urgently, but I can't really decide where Aston Villa are going to fall exactly. Now, when I look at the midfield, it's quite clear that there's great versatility. There's a lot of options here, and they don't really need to worry. But between having Duguay and Booby in here, then Donker fills in once in a while, and then the rise of Tielemans, McGinn is nailed on, and then Ramsey, Zaniolo, Buendia is not even in this picture. Very capable, very well-rounded midfield. But, like, you know, then Donker's not amazing. Ramsey's just back from an injury. Buendia is injured. Zaniolo likes an injury. Tielemans likes an injury. There is always that, maybe we could do with one more just to be safe kind of feeling about this midfield. Now, I think it's clear they don't need anyone to reinforce the midfield with their defensive acumen. Even in the worst injury case scenarios, like guys like Tielemans, McGinn, Ramsey, some of these guys can play in those deeper roles. Aston Villa have already had credible links to Unai Emery's former subordinate player, or whatever you want to call it or think of it as, and that is Alex Baena. Now, Villarreal are having an absolute honking season, and I could see them being willing to sell Alex Baena in January to get some funds in. Marcelino, the new manager, will want to spend money in January because the team at Villarreal is crap at the moment. So they might cash in on Baena, and I think he would add a lot into this Aston Villa midfield. But I do feel that he would be, someone that Aston Villa would want to groom into a first-team starter. That midfield is really busy. He is a bit more creative, and there is maybe space for someone like him to grow into the team. But at 22, he's only got a year or two under his belt at Villarreal, and maybe a bit of a risk for the likes of Emery and Monchi to make in the January window. Maybe he's more of a summer signing for me that could come in, amass a bit of a movement in the squad, a couple of players in and out kind of vibe. But I can see why Emery and Monchi would be attracted to him. He takes set pieces. He's a very progressive, very energetic midfielder and is capped at Spain all the way through the youth level. So a guy that they will be very familiar with. And I think would take to the Premier League football pretty well. But again, Villarreal, as much as they'll be desperate to sell, probably won't be desperate to sell cheap, especially considering the fees that Aston Villa have been paying recently. So for me in midfield, who I think is the number one midfielder that Aston Villa should be trying to add into their ranks in the January transfer window, is someone who I would probably term as being the Spanish John McGinn. And I know what you're thinking. What are you talking about, Quinny? Andres Iniesta is like 38. There's no way we need him at Aston Villa. I'm not talking about Andres Iniesta. It's not quite the Spanish John McGinn, but it's like the Spanish John McGinn, and that is none other than King Carlos Soler. Now, this guy was phenomenal at Valencia for me. He was a real, John McGinn type figure. Captain's armband, did everything in centre midfield, made everything tick. Started his career off as a bit of a winger, but doesn't really have winger pace. But we've recently seen PSG even use him at right back. His time at the club, his days are numbered. He will be moving in January. They spend a couple of quid on him. He won't go cheap. But again, PSG are desperate for incoming transfer fees and to get wages off their books. And Carlos Soler, for me, has all the versatility that Unai Emery and Monchi would possibly want in this squad. But he has it a little bit more than some of these other players in the attacking third, where, like I say, he can't even fill out in these, like we've seen McGinn and Zaniolo do, wide midfield areas. He can 100% do that. He loves a pass. He's, like I say, he's a captain. He's captain material. And the more, this whole Villa midfield for me is full of captains. And that's why I think he would be a great addition. But he is more kind of advanced, a bit more forward thinking. Not as much as Zaniolo. He's maybe a wee bit more on that box-to-box side of life. But you definitely would never class him as a defensive midfielder like maybe some of these other guys could be classed as. So I would definitely see him much more of a opponent's half midfielder. And like I say, the form at PSG, he's in and out the team all the time. Unfortunately, he's not been up to much. And when you look at his ratings out of 100 for Valencia, who were an absolute terrible team under a lot of financial crisis, terrible ownership, all that kind of stuff, he was getting fantastic output and fantastic scores. And to get someone of this elite caliber available in January, potentially on a loan or something a bit more, financially attractive, I think is really down Monchi and Unai Emery's lane and might supersede a transfer for Alex Baena. It'll be really interesting to see where Carlos Soler goes, and if he does end up anywhere in the Premier League, whoever does get him is going to look like a genius. So I think Aston Villa should be spending their primary time and resources in that kind of position, in these two types of areas. Someone for the attack, someone else to help the midfield, maybe a wee bit more on the advanced area. But when it comes to the defence, I find it really difficult to think about who could come in to just supplement this or lift the level of the team. Now, I think this guy's going to move to the Premier League in January. He has said to Leverkusen, I want to leave. I want to be a number one starter somewhere. And that is Piero Hincapié. Now, this guy, I could really see him turning up at Aston Villa. He's very versatile, can play centre-back, left centre-back. Very similar in how I could see Emery using Hincapié to the way you've seen Ezri Konsa used. Just imagine a left-sided Ezri Konsa who's maybe a wee bit more adventurous in the final third, a wee bit more bombastic. I think he would lift the level that you see at left-back if he was to play as an out-and-out left-back, but I do feel that he's maybe a wee bit more centre-backy. So I think if you were to play him on this side of the pitch, it probably makes it quite hard for Konsa to start, and that's probably the games you would see Cash come in. We might see that type of evolution, and I know Konsa's been a real fan's favourite this year, so I don't know if that is something that you would be happy with. with or you think is something to be urgently dealt with. But I think he is the #1 guy that would fit into Aston Villa's starting 11 that is available in the transfer window. But with the success that Villa have got and how resolute the team is and how solid they've been as a unit, I don't know if Emery will make a signing like that might, disrupt the group. But Piero Hincapié would certainly be worth it. I would be just as excited about this as when I seen Pau Torres move to Aston Villa, an elite European, borderline Champions League level defender, as yet unproven. That's why I say borderline, who just needs minutes, just needs game time. He's been proving it at Bundesliga level, which is very formidable and obviously proved a good proving ground already for Aston Villa players. So I think this is a guy that really could come in. As you can see, he does like a booking. It's probably one thing that holds him back. But depending on how much money gets spent on more urgent matters, the striker, some sort of extra midfield support, I'm not sure the money would be there for Piero Hincapié, whose market value at the moment is 30-40 million, depending on what you read. I actually think the more moneyball approach to supplement this team and really help it level up would be someone like Mika Marmol, who is also kind of like a left-sided Ezri Konsa type figure. He's a La Masia graduate, very good progressive defender who I think would be very happy to come to the Premier League and play second fiddle at Pau Torres, come in when required in that left back, left wide centre back kind of role that Unai Emery has used Konsa in on the right, for whenever he does want to play Cash on the right and try and give that lopsided approach a real better symmetry between left and right. Now, Mika Marmol did very, very good in the Segunda division last year, in La Liga 2, depending on what you want to call it. And that division's produced a lot of elite players over the last 5 or 6 years that you might not be aware of, like Darwin Núñez. You might not think he's elite. And for a centre-back, he did exceptionally well in the Segunda division, so much so that he made a January transfer to the team that won the division. So he moved from Andorra, a very low-ranking team that conceded a lot of goals and was still scoring very, very well against all the odds. He's now moved into La Liga in that, even though the club won La Liga 2 last year in La Liga, Las Palmas are doing kind of good. They're around mid-table or so, but they're a minnow. They're not a good team. They don't have much possession. They do concede goals very often. But as you can see, he is making lots of progressive passes. He wins his duels. He wins his tackles. His ratings out of 100 at La Liga level are consistently above the 50 mark, which for a young up-and-coming centre-back who could fit into this kind of side of life, especially since Longley's only on loan, that just feels like maybe much more of a squad move more than anything. So I do feel that defence has got the least priority out of all of these, but I do feel that something else in there to just kind of help the flow, help the depth is probably on the agenda somewhere, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a wee deal, a wee money ball, kind of speculative deal like this kind of happen. I think if Aston Villa could get these 3 signings over the line, then the world is their oyster. Top 4 or even greater, who knows. Obviously, there's still the European competition and knockout stages to negotiate, as well as any other domestic cup that might come their way. But Aston Villa are sitting in a great position of strength, and I'm really excited to see what they do in January. I hope they splash the cash, and I really do hope that they see the writing on the wall and reinforce the areas that they're maybe just a bit thin in, not necessarily lacking, just to make sure that they see this season over the line and they make the great start that they've had count. On screen there now is some other stuff that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. I hope you had a good time with this one, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, retweet, and all that good stuff. And I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.